He's gonna give you the eagle song.
Yeah. All right, we are ready. Would you all join us, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Knocks me over the chair here.
Exactly.
Sorry. Bound to happen. Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right.
I think they put the flag there just so they know I can see it.
Get any closer to you. So, all right. Well, with that, I will call the April 5th Town of Damariscotta Select Board meeting to order. If it's pleases
One addition
to the agenda.
What do you got? Do you want to acknowledge the addition to the agenda now? I got one.
Yes. Sorry.
There's an application for an on-site or catering function to consider that came in today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is that a public, we don't need a public hearing on that, right? That's just an application. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you for reminding me. So you put it in front of me, but I was there. So, all right. So we'll recognize as an addition to the agenda tonight for an application for catered function there. We can pass that out before we
Okay.
move emotions on or whatever. Like, so, I was going to suggest if it's pleases the board, we do have a license renewal, on-site license renewal for Oysterhead Pizza Company, and we can either make them wait till the very, very end.
It's pretty
I
boring.
prefer just to do it now.
Or we can do it now. So, yeah, it's just usually the case. So, yeah.
They should have brought a pizza with us so we could have made it.
You know, you can make that motion, I suppose. I don't know how official it could be, but, yeah.
On free pizza.
Are there any, questions or comments, concerns on the application?
No.
All
There
right.
was just one question that had been
Yeah.
raised on the last page of the state's application. There was a note, section 7, that if there's percentage of ownerships need to add up to 100.
Mhm.
Oh,
Right
yeah.
now it's listed at 50. Just a heads up. So it's not, I did reach out to the state. It's not part of the board's review process. That page, that section is something the state will review.
So the state has to,
Just as a heads up there, it was brought up earlier.
Even if they're not on the liquor license, they.
Might be something just to clarify with the state. Cause it just, there's a note saying that it just needs out after, just,
Think that was when I had a question.
yeah.
Thank you.
it won't impede us any, but make sure you follow up with it. So, yeah. All right. Do I hear a motion on the Oysterhead Pizza Company?
I'll make a motion to approve the Oysterhead Pizza Company.
Second.
Andrea, Lou's gonna second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. We'll stop down later then.
Come back into that.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so all set. You're more than welcome to hang out. It's gonna get exciting.
I'd run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
See ya.
We'll move right through. We've got some housekeeping here. We have 2 sets of minutes, 15th and the. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. The minutes from the first are for the budget workshop. We do still have forthcoming the
Oh.
regular meeting minutes.
Yeah, sorry.
The 15th is a regular meeting, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was tabled the last meeting.
So.
Did I capture?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'll
there
make
we
a
go. So
motion
we
to
can do-
approve February 15th, 2023
Second.
minutes.
Thank you, Josh. I think Tom seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, carried. And then we have the March 1st budget meeting right there, right?
Combination or just the budget?
Well, it's
Combination,
combo,
right?
select
Yeah.
board budget committee. work.
I'll make a motion to approve March 1st, 2023 budget. Selectmen/selectmen workshop.
Thank you,
Second.
Josh. Andrew, do you second?
Yeah.
All right, Andrew seconds. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, that carries. So
It's absent. I have to
Lou's gonna
abstain.
Yeah, all right.
Said you
So
were here.
financials, a payroll warrant, I believe it's number 48.
There's 2 of them right there.
Yeah, there's two of them.
Sorry, yeah, 47, 46 and 47 up there, right?
47
48's 8.
and 46.
Sorry.
Payroll warrants 46, 47.
I got my
Second.
numbers messed up. Lou seconds, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries, yep. And accounts payable 48.
I'll move accounts payable warrant 48.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Second, Tom seconds. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, I'm gonna abstain. There's
I can't imagine why.
There's an invoice with my name on it, so I'll abstain from that one. So, all right, Gary, so, do we have any, citizen comments, general correspondence? Andy, do you have anything? Snail mail, anything like that came in?
I know someone is here to speak.
I figured
From-
Anton
yeah.
might be here. Yeah, I was getting to it.
Yeah.
I was gonna make him sweat it out a little bit, so, yeah. Anton, do we have anything, you got something for us? Come on up.
So I'm actually here with the other co-chair for PSAC, Gene Moon, who's on the
Oh, okay.
Screen.
By Zoom there. Yep, so.
Hello.
Anton Lonston, 35 Schooner Street, as co-chair of the Public Safety and Accessibility Collaborative, or commonly called PSAC. One of the issues in the community that I think is appropriate at budget time to discuss is, and one of the missions that PSAC has is around safety in the community, improving it, doing what we can to advocate for the community. And I think at budget time, this one is particularly important because we hear it a lot. And basically it is a safety concern about the sidewalk. I'm sorry, not the sidewalks, but the crosswalks in downtown Damariscotta, primarily the four major ones. I know there are others, but the four major ones that cross Main Street, which are pretty much invisible at this point. And I know that in the past that they've been attended to, but I think there's a possibility of looking at them in a different way. At the same time, I've had conversations with Andy about the increases that are in the budget to take care of some contracting services related to this. But what we're really strongly advocating is the consideration of painting those crosswalks, particularly those for twice a year rather than once a year, so that they don't disappear during the winter, so that they're still there in the spring. And that it helps, we believe, with some of the key safety issues downtown. It's a great downtown and total advocate for it, but somehow or other, it seems to me, it seems to us that we need to consider a way in which those crosswalks can be handled twice a year, once in the spring at the appropriate time and once in the fall. And it would we believe be not only a safety asset, but a visible asset to the beauty of the community and what's here. It's a time that I'd ask you to consider that in addition to the amount that's in the budget at the present time. And I've gone over that. I think it's fabulous that some of the work is going to be contracted, et cetera. I don't need to go into that. Andy has that, in my view, well in hand, but there needs to either be an amount added to the current budget for that work being done twice in a single year in 24, or somebody's got to get creative with the budget that is there and make a way for those four critical sidewalks to be done twice a year. I think some of you have heard this before, maybe everybody has, but it's not something to set aside. We know it costs money and I'm not advocating for spending more money necessarily, but I think it's doing the right thing for the community. That's my plea with the board. I think it's in your hands. And Gene, please add for your perspective.
I think what I would add to what you have said, Anton, is that, our business is safety. Our business meaning PSAC. And so I have observed, and as I often do when I'm downtown, people who are from away and they're not seeing any pathway that defines a crosswalk area, they simply walk out and hope for the best.
Mhm.
And so I think, yes, it does cost money, but it's more costly in the end if someone is injured when we don't intend that. As Anton said, it's a lovely downtown. We all love it. And so let's do what we need to do to make it safe. That's all. That's all I have to add, Anton. I just want to stress that people who have lived here in the community for a long time get it. They kind of know where these 4 spots are, where there's a crosswalk, but people who are from away do not.
Yeah, I don't know, Andy, whether you want to add anything to, from our conversations or, not necessarily a request, but we've been in dialogue, and that's not necessarily a support or anything of that sort, but just clarify the issue.
Yeah,
for
no,
us.
thank you, Anton. Yeah.
I do understand the budget concerns and
Yeah.
appreciate.
Yeah, it's
them.
definitely something we'd have to look at what that cost would be, in addition to what.
Do we
Right,
have it in here?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
we have it, for once you do it going forward for like once a year. So, yeah, it's in,
Committee in here?
sorry,
Is there committee in here?
in the budget book?
Yeah.
No, no,
Okay.
the PSEC is,
Right.
these guys run a nice ship on their own. They don't need.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
We don't get involved. We enjoy,
Well,
yeah.
we try.
You guys, a good job. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
and
Thank
bringing us
you.
up to speed. So thank you, Don. Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, we can always look into it, and if it's something, some cost wise, but. All right, and not hearing any other correspondence, and we can move on to capital projects, manager items, Andy? If you're ready.
Yes, Hodgson Street bids came in at 2:00 this afternoon. There were 2 bids that were received, one from Farley Incorporated, the other one from Hager Enterprises. I did provide you with a copy of those and some of the more relevant perhaps to the bid submission documents that they submitted. I'll give 2 weeks for parties to review, check budgets, see if there's additional items that we need to, or questions that we have for the contractors. But you have those and we'll take that up on the 19th, Lord willing.
Yep.
That sounds good. Any questions at this point on that?
Questions, yeah, at this point, we'll go through them.
At this point,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Both companies have worked for the town.
yeah, familiar with both of them, so.
Always good to see more than just 2, but
Yeah.
that's what we.
Yeah, no, who's better than one and.
I know
better than
that-
zero, so.
The engineers, when they sent out their list of contractors they commonly work with for projects like this, I think there was at least 5, if not 6 on there.
Mhm.
So that, and plus it was posted in the paper and on the website and MMA site, so we try to put it out there best we can,
So I
but
say we're happy with, we got it out there, but it's just, yeah, you can't always control what comes in, so. All right, we'll review that and be ready for the 19th, so.
Miles Street, the Causeway project is underway. This is week number 2 at this point. The big next step, they've been working primarily on the armament, if you will, or the riprap and big, large keystones. Remove the failing retaining wall and then put those in this past week and a half. At the end of the week, they're planning on trying to get into the fire line, the hydrant there on the campus. So
Okay.
that's one of the bigger pieces that we were talking about that was part of the, in some part the delay and at the end there to try and get the contract signed. So little anticipation on what we'll find there, but some test pits were dug today, I believe. So they have a little better sense of what they think they're going to get into when the contractors show up. But that, again, underway, they do communicate on a weekly basis, kind of a summary of what they're doing. I'm in constant communication with our engineer on any potential changes or issues that come up. So yeah, full steam ahead. I think at this point, if they stay on schedule, they're looking early part of June to be able to wrap that up. Unless things change. Any questions or concerns or things we want to do on with regards to that project? Anybody?
Just making sure we have the oversight that we need to make sure they're doing it to what we specified.
Yes, I did talk to our engineer about that. I think as they have it right now, they're estimating a minimum of once a week, just random stop-ins. And there's a couple key components of the project that they want to have eyes on. So we don't need them there every day at the rate that it'll cost. We didn't budget that, but I think we were looking for somewhere in the 16 to 20 inspections, ranging from a half hour to 4 hours, depending on what's going on that day. So it gives us a ballpark of a budget to kind of work within on that. I think I was estimating about 10 grand or so for those types of services. And then I did talk to him about material testing as well.
Mhm.
When we get into raising that road up 2 or 3 feet and making sure that the material is what's spec'd, the compaction's met after that's laid down. So we did, he was going to get numbers. Our engineer was going to get numbers on that as well.
That's great, Andy. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Still waiting on the parking lot follow-up from the committee. I did confirm that they did hear it in March. We're as hopeful as anyone that they'll come in any day now with saying the committee is ready to move forward, but just unfortunately no news at the moment, but
Your paragraph is getting smaller.
I'm cognizant of not just carrying it forward.
So you were, it went from copy and paste to copy and delete.
I am met with the district with Leanna and Max Johnstone with MCOG the other day to talk about the paperwork necessary to have them added as a co-recipient of the grant. So working
good
through
job.
that
Okay.
process.
So that's in,
We're hoping on our end to have that all put together by the end of April. And then if it's good to go with their board, they can consider it at their May meeting. And then we'll be able to, they meet once a month. So we'll be able to get that hopefully out after their meeting in May. Hodgson Street and Church Street, just following up since the last meeting, I did get those grant requests submitted for federal funds, still looking into other sources, not feeling real hopeful on that, just given how we had to apply for it. It was under economic development.
Yeah.
It's not a state aid road, so that road didn't qualify for the transportation funds that they have available. So, open to any other ideas out there. I know there's a safe, a bike ped program the state has. It's a much smaller threshold, but it's one that's on my radar. I think they're due this summer. There's another federal one that just came out that I'm looking into to see if that's something we can do or not. But I think the request I put in for was just over $1 million from the federal request. So
all right. We'll
still a
keep
good
looking.
chunk of money we need to, if we're going to do both at the same time, we can separate those a little bit and do them as 2 separate ones, but
Sure.
swing for that. As far as the legislative updates go, I think do most of you get those bulletins? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bills.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Session.
bills.
Yeah. They are working seriously.
Now that they've gone through that partial budget approval there to keep the majority of the bulk of their
Yeah.
agencies running, that I think they've put more attention back into the bills and the sessions. So like a lot of folks are expecting them to start working into work sessions and take the big one that we're of course eager to see what happens with is the stabilization tax
Yeah.
bill. A couple other ones that are interesting. Our attorney did reach out to her clients yesterday, I think it was, and just kind of gave us a heads up on something on her radar, which has to do with foreclosure, a bill around the property tax foreclosures. And there's a proposal that there could be a look back period if someone was foreclosed on and they enter bankruptcy and it's like a 2-year window of the foreclosure, that there's a possibility that that property could be somehow incorporated in there. And the way it's written, it could potentially, if we were to have sold that property, it could potentially revert back to someone else if they go through bankruptcy. So that's one that's printed and being discussed, I think, next week. So she just kind of flagged that for us. There's also one around affordable housing that went through last year. and increasing density bonuses and that kind of stuff. And so I think both our previous planners thought we were okay and consistent with our ordinances, allowing accessory dwelling units, allowing increased density if they've got water and sewer there. So she was reminding her towns of that as well, but from what I understand, we're okay there. The rules are still being considered around that, and so I think there are some bills in right now about that as well, delaying it, modifying it, so if you're under a certain population, it would be optional. So that's one that'll go through some work sessions and may change, but otherwise it has to go into effect July 1st, and a lot of towns are going to be behind the 8 ball as the rules haven't been finalized.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And just a reminder, another one of the things they're talking about, and someone had brought it up today in conversation, was the concerns around the PFAS and the solid waste,
With the sewer
or
treatment,
septic
yeah.
waste.
Mhm.
It's one that continues to lead discussions in Augusta as well. I don't know what it means for our district, but it's something probably just generally for folks to be aware of. I think even if you're off of the public sewer, if you have your own private septics, that could potentially impact where your hauler or pump out has to go and what the cost could be. Just
Mhm.
a lot of unknowns right now about where that can end up going. That waste can go to be processed.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot going on
Hmm.
up there.
Good.
And how it compares to normal, other years, but it seems like they've got a lot of. LD
I heard there's a
so-
lot more going on this year than
Yeah,
last year.
yeah.
They're getting
So.
their, yeah.
All right, thank you, Andy. Nothing else to add in there?
Not for that
All right,
section.
good.
Not for this section.
All right then. Well, we can, we've got a few action items. Yes,
One comment.
yes, sure can, Andy.
Newsletter for Damariscotta for this month, I thought was terrific. And I think for a citizen
Oh.
looking
Oh,
for
yeah.
information, and I said that.
Well, that's, yeah, kudos to the staff and
Yeah.
stuff. That's
Anybody hasn't looked at it, it's really valuable.
awesome. Thank you for saying that. And that's, yeah, kudos to the staff for handling all that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, we've got nothing to do with it, so we won't take it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, all right, so we have a few items here, took care of one already. We do have do you want to touch on anything on this one, Andy, with the disposal of the personal property or surplus equipment?
Yes, Chief Warlick did provide an email identifying
Yeah.
some of the items, he'd gone through and really cleaned out the storage room they had down there and organized the files a lot better. And there's a lot of just older stuff that just from old vehicles or uniforms, those just things that we
Yeah.
aren't using and just have been sitting in storage essentially. And so he's cleaned a lot of it out, identified some of that might have some value or could be sold to another department or just someone. So he's looking for permission to be able to sell. There was one addition that he had. There was a radar detector.
Oh, okay.
Something that we've got replacement for. It was a 2017, I think, model or something, or maybe we got the new one in 2017. So since then, it's just kind of been in the storage room. And so he'd like to just add that for consideration as well. If you consider giving him the ability to seek out either sale or bid for those items as he sees fit.
I'll make a motion that we allow the chief to dispose of the surplus equipment and to take the funds and the proceeds and allocate it to painting the crosswalks.
I like it.
Well,
Nice job,
second.
Tom. Sorry.
Good.
Yes.
Motion
Well,
and
I don't-
second.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's a great
I'll
idea.
call for a second, but then we need.
Second it.
You seconded,
did
I didn't
second.
hear, okay.
Lou did second it.
All right, any discussion? No discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? I'm gonna oppose that as well. Okay, so so motion carries.
Yeah.
So. I can say no.
You don't want the crosswalks done?
No,
Well,
just
I just-
concur with the appropriation of the funds going from one, because we have to move it over from the police department over to highway. It's just
Okay.
gonna be messy.
And,
No, it's fine.
and usually there goes back into the capital reserve fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
So-
that department, so And we didn't notify the chief that we were gonna do that, so.
So we would, I think you would need to clarify if we can do that anyway. So the motion's been approved, but final word's gonna have to be through charter and whatnot, whether or not we could do that. So, okay. Gotcha. All right, and we have cemetery ordinance updates. We got a chance to look at those.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. I hear a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the
John?
cemetery ordinance updates to be, it's gonna be on the town warrant, right? To be
Mhm.
included on the town warrant.
Yeah, awesome. Second?
Second.
Nope.
Lou.
All right, don't fight over it. Lou's got that one. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. So we do have the addition here for an application for a catered function by qualified catering organization. This will be for the business after hours at the Round Top Farmhouse. We can, everybody can take a look at it. I can pass it down real quick.
I'm all good.
It looks pretty straightforward. I think they've done this before.
I mean, because they don't normally.
It just came in late. It's not on the agenda.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's an addition to the agenda. We just.
But
got
it's
it.
something that we normally approve every year.
It's a normal process. It just came in late on the agenda, as far as, but they've gone through.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so that in particular is there's an event they want to cater, like they being the, Stone Cove Farm, I think that's what it's called. It's so that they can cater and serve, alcohol off their premise. So it's a state application that they go through that the town has to approve. So that procedurally is the process.
Because
is
normally
pretty-
the,
Not to say that they come through every year.
normally
for it, but-
that facility doesn't have
Questions?
alcohol on it, so they have to get a permission to.
Yeah, so there's a
The company
entity, the
can-
company has a liquor license to
Yeah.
serve out of their location where they're coming to host the event and cater that. They're asking the state for permission for us, for the board for permission to allow them to just go off site to do it.
Sure.
Yeah. And we don't have a budget workshop at this moment for next Wednesday. So being the second Wednesday of the month,
So we're supposed to.
it'll be the chamber, the after hours event. So
Oh, yeah.
board members that
Okay.
want
go.
or can go,
yeah.
that's what that's for.
Only two.
What?
Yeah.
Only
Draw
two
straw.
people?
If we get three of us there, we gotta. Yes,
What?
To put you in different
True.
corners.
so we can, yeah,
Is that
we have
really
to
true?
announce it. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah,
I make a motion.
Like, we couldn't all go out for dinner together?
okay, Lou's gonna make,
Elizabeth wants to go.
Lou just made a motion for
Second it.
the, approve the application. Josh just seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that carries. All right, and that's it for action items, I believe. So we can move on, Eddie. We've got a few things to touch base on here. I think, we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in the works here.
Okay.
So, you want to start with the draft for the warrant discussion or?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can do that. So since I provided this, I have reached out and talked a little bit with our attorney on some of these and MMA for on a couple of other questions regarding that.
Oh, okay.
I think my biggest questions, is there anything that stands out on there to correct, based on what the meetings when I did before the meeting started, give you a printout of what I've captured, what I thought I've captured anyways from the approval process. So there should be, in most cases, I think for the most part, almost every article that has a financial implication has both the budget committee as well as the board.
Yep.
The budget committee said they'd like to see the financial articles have to see what sum wording at the beginning as opposed to vote on a defined amount. So I put that in there. That's what it was before you had gone to the poll during COVID.
Right, yeah.
To test to see if that's something that the board would like to see it worded that way. The other question I had was around the articles that'll be printed for the warrant around the petition process for provider agencies. And do you want those to be on secret ballot on Tuesday at the poll, or do you want that on the floor? And we could ask them to attend, should there be questions, or you can ask them if they want to do a presentation, they can do that.
I'd say secret ballot. It's a petition.
Yeah, I think it's how it's been done, right? Did we do it secret ballot before?
We've done it both.
Both ways? Okay, I can't remember, Josh. Yeah. I'm fine with yes, and doing a secret ballot and
Yeah.
that's the way in, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerned as the warrants laid out? Are we happy with it to see what sum and the wording?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
You have two articles there in the, so for the capital reserves, before it was a total amount for all the reserves to be appropriated to the
Mhm.
capital reserve fund. I've raised that kind of that question about, is it a singular fund or are these supposed to go into each reserve? And so I did break those out as unique articles. There's two of them, though. We had talked about the salt sand shed reserve for the highway department.
yeah,
Expanding that potentially to incorporate just the general facility needs. So I've worded that there if that's okay with the board. And then same thing with police, instead of just the vehicle, to incorporate other capital needs as well for them. We can set up additional reserve funds, but it's just another tracking. But if we wanted to expand that similarly, that's what those are for.
no, I don't see anything jumping out.
No, all look good to me.
I do also have a question into MMA about the, on here, what's Article 36. I know some of the numbers are a little out of place, maybe or misnumbered, but on there is Article 36. Talking about the estimated revenue accounts. That's not new, but one of the questions I have is around the state reimbursements. Previously, there was like an intergovernmental revenues, which captured revenue sharing, homestead exemption, and Betty. Those are on the tax calculation form, and we're obligated to use those revenues to offset the tax burden. I don't think that we need to have those included in there to be approved. So I'm just clarifying to make sure that what, you know, which way it needs to be.
Yeah.
It does lead to a potential for kind of double accounting, which our auditor did pick up on for our FY 22 budget. There was about $20,000. They can't seem to quite account for on the projection for the revenues when we look at what was kind of being approved and what was coming in. So it's good news is revenue came in over what we budgeted, so it's fine from the fund balance perspective, but it just kind of creates that additional step where we might not count for. So I'm trying to suggest that we just remove revenue shares, homestead exemption, and Betty reimbursements from the approval process, because it's going to be on the tax calculation form. When you commit taxes, it's built into that formula.
Okay.
That's the only real change there. I did just laid out a little bit differently is all.
All right. No, thank you, Andy. It looks, I haven't made any questions, comments from the,
I guess there was one last one, the budget committee. It does say in the charter that the select board nominates the budget committee members to be considered in this article.
The Article 40.
Becky and I still got to work to identify who's left, but we'll put that forward as a consideration for anyone that's looking to stay on that for you at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So we'll update this to reflect whose seats are up.
okay, yeah, fair enough. No. Right. Looks like everything's,
There's a couple we'll remove. Article 45 on there. It's to act on reports. That one came from Amanda. We had questions as to what exactly reports are being acted on by the voters, and no one really seemed to.
Nobody-
Unless the board has an idea. I didn't see it in the charter. It's not something that's normally in there, and so we just suggested striking that particular article. And then the article on the authorizing the board to expend money on general assistance, that's in the budget already. So we don't need that additional
we don't
article
need
there.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Clean it up a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah.
And tax, your recommendation for tax due dates is usually noted in there. I'm assuming you want to stick to the first business day in October, and in April still the maximum allowed interest rates at 8%. I don't know if you have a recommendation to have listed there, as you usually have that worded in there that way.
Usually it was always the same.
I was gonna say, there's no reason to change it. You know, everybody's pretty used to it, so.
Great.
No, looks good, Andy.
I know on the revenue side, it'd be good to clarify before for the fund balance article. Josh, you were thinking that it was 150. I thought it was 140. If we just want to clarify what that is, because my minutes are going to want to reflect what the board wants to use for undesignated fund balance for next year. I
Oh, we
proposed
did.
75, but then went through the exercise where I thought we had 80,000 unspent, 60,000 extra in revenue. So I just want to make sure we capture that accurately for the minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, I thought it was 150. I thought that's what we did.
Sounds right, yeah.
In our notes someplace,
Yeah.
we take notes.
I was taking them. I
Yeah.
thought I'd captured 140, and I can definitely correct that. I might have
Just want to
misheard. I went
clarify,
to-
I'm pretty sure it was 150, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah,
50 sounds familiar.
yeah,
We'll all agree.
okay, yeah. 150 it is.
Did you fix my other,
No,
the other one? Nobody else found it?
that was
Oh,
the general
no.
assistance one.
Yeah.
There was some 3,000 votes from something. I remember seeing that. To the 3 point.
What was that, Tom?
Oh, there was some in the minutes. It's not.
That's. Gotcha, okay. All right, any other questions, comments on the warrant as it stands right now in the draft? We good?
Mhm.
All right, we can, Andy, if you're. You all good? Yeah, we can move on here. Did you want to have a conversation about, I say on the, there's been talk about aquaculture on the river.
Yes,
Been some conversations surrounding that a little bit.
just need a little more information and guidance from you all. And I meant to look up and I didn't. The Shellfish Committee is slated to meet this month.
Next
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And so we'll bring some of this to them as you'd like, if we do have a committee for it, and so they can talk about it, but I think it'd be good to be clear in what the board's desire is, kind of what are the goals around the idea of a potential moratorium. A couple of things I provided, and I'm sorry, the coloring kind of faded out a little bit, but there's the first 3 pages
Color my
there,
number here.
kind of like a map of the river.
Mhm.
Because if I zoom out to get the whole Damariscotta River, you can't really see some of those aquaculture sites. But so if you started that first page of those 3, it kind of works your way down from the bay down through the river. The majority of the lease sites, you might be aware, along the river are in the Damariscotta, Newcastle, and northern part of Bristol. Part of the river, so just give you an idea if you weren't familiar or didn't know, this is a state map viewer, a public resource that anyone can go, and there's information if you were to click on some of those lease sites, more information will come up. It's a great tool the state has, and you can tell you who the lease site belongs to and the type of aquaculture they're harvesting or growing there.
Andy, can you give us a link to that website, or is that in the, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
The only one I don't recognize on this map is the one that's in Houston Cove. I thought that was, first of all, half the time that's closed. Wavestream, so that little blue spot there, I don't understand who owns that, but.
I'll send the link along and
Mhm.
folks can take a look at
Yeah,
that.
take a look, yeah.
The next sheet I gave is a series of historical landings for soft shell clams. By pounds.
Damariscotta got wiped out.
So again, I wasn't entirely sure what the goals were, where we're coming from. So I'm just trying to provide some information that I could find
Yeah.
quickly. And so this kind of shows at least the state again has this by port. I pulled out the ones along our river, included Waldoboro, knowing that they're a big producer. And I think a lot of our commercial folks end up there as well.
Yep.
I was probably a little surprised just not knowing the area that South Bristol's also a pretty big harvester for, and it makes sense looking at the map. They have a lot of water frontage to consider. So
Sure.
that gives you an idea. Again, another data point to see the history. The decline is happened pretty abruptly there and up to 2010. Damariscotta's harvest increased in 2013 again, and then it's kind of bottomed out and trajectory where it loses a little bit each year, it seems, since then. So
But we don't know why.
don't necessarily know. I don't think you'll find there isn't one single reason probably, but it's not kind of skews a little bit. So I put it on a second axis there, but the oyster, the state DMR doesn't have oyster landings by port like they do for the soft shell clam, so it's just a statewide number. I do have a question out to them to see if they do have it by port, just it wasn't available online, so I'm hoping that
Right,
they
yeah.
do, and that'd be interesting to see, you know,
Well,
Not
those
to
numbers
assume-
don't look good either.
not to assume a correlation, but you know, just be interesting to know, like, is one's increasing, is the other decreasing, is it equal? And
Yeah.
again, this is just in pounds. They do have the data in value, is, you know, value landed. And then the last 2 pages there, I'm not sure if this was shared with you last summer, but there were a lot of towns, particularly down east, that were considering the moratoriums for aquaculture as well. It was
Right.
an initiative started by a nonprofit vested to preserve fishing grounds for lobstermen. And they kind of drafted a sample moratorium that towns could adopt or take forward to their communities. And so that's what Waldoboro's is drafted on. That's what they're considering. I got to reach out to someone at South Bristol to learn. I don't know if that did pass or not, but
It did pass.
It did pass. So
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions myself in terms of if it's something that, you know, this town wants to consider. I mean, my biggest question is, can we? And, you know, according to the state's letter that went out last summer, they're going to say it's not a license that's issued by the towns. And so you don't really have a whole lot of
Yeah, how would
say in
you
creating a moratorium
enforce
on
the
the
mor-
issuance of the licenses. They highlight the process in which a license, you know, and is approved, and that there's opportunity for input and public input. So I think, again, just gathering more to understand, is it more about the moratorium and to stop any additional, and for what reason? There, you know, for the state statute, there are certain caveats
Yeah.
to have to be able to issue one.
Well, we talked about this before, but there are a lot of issues beyond just the effect on the wildlife and also the, you know, the other shellfish industries, but there's transportation, there's the other uses of the river, there's a concentration issue. There's the effect on the flora as well. There are a lot of issues, and I think since I started bringing this up, the purpose of the moratorium was to take a look at what the effects are and get some input into the state so that we have a stronger role there. As far as I know, the only people that get notice of a new lease are those that within 1,000 feet of the lease. I don't think the town even gets a notice
No,
that somebody's put you. You do?
Yeah, the town usually signs off on it, but our purview to sign off on those typically would go through the harbor master. And would typically be from the perspective of, is this interfering with navigation and other historical uses, essentially.
Well, I know the former harbor master had input, and at least in one license that I was involved in, and he was saying there was going to be an effect on navigation. And you know, the map shows the concentration around, you know, there's 16 licenses right around within a mile of Damariscotta. And that's the concentration on the river. And you know, at this point, the goal would be to try to either freeze or at least reduce any further impact and concentration there until we know more about what the effects are on the environment and further navigation.
This is not a area that I'm well versed in. I would, you know, I'd like to have some more information first before we would go into a moratorium.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to, like, a knee-jerk reaction.
No,
So
I agree.
and looking at it, there's a lot going on here, and I guess to Andy's point too, it would be look at what is the we'd have to have a clear-cut goal from the board as far as what we're, you know, are you looking to reduce leases or, you know, freeze the current leases or manage leases, you know, at a percentage going on. So there's there's a lot of ways you could go. But I think we would need to, I mean, for me, I would need more information to see, you know, from.
Yeah, I don't think we can reduce the leases, the
No.
16 that are already there. They're 20-year leases.
Well, yeah, and that's what I asked, like, you know, what is,
No,
that's
the goal
what's
would
the
be
goal?
to try to
Yeah.
maybe understand more of the impacts before more leases are approved.
I think we would want to bring the oyster folks to the table on this as well.
Oh, sure.
If you know, because you've got a lot of people involved
Darling,
with DMR,
And Darling.
Darling and
DMR,
whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I can tell you this, that there was a license that was modified because of citizen input. And
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
a half an acre that was gonna go through a channel where they were gonna dredge a channel that's used for navigation was cut off the lease as a result of citizen input.
Yeah.
But that was a local citizen input, and there was no consideration of other effects other than the navigation. But dredging produces a lot of other issues. It stirs up all the dirt, and that can affect shellfish.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we-
yeah.
If you look at
Yes.
the graph, the shellfish are almost non-existent now in Damariscotta, and that's
Yeah.
not by accident.
Yeah.
The oysters eat the same food as the shellfish.
Yeah. A lot of stuff shares that
But
same.
you saw
Ours
the
is
decrease in oysters too. The oyster decrease is huge, almost an half.
The oysters in Damariscotta?
It's
Oh, the wild oysters, yeah, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I
Yeah.
think one of the reasons there is they're producing
Um,
oysters that don't reproduce. The
So-
oysters,
And did
Yeah.
you say the Shellfish Committee they're meeting sometime
Next
this
week.
month?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they do, one of the committee members is a scientist at the Darling Marine Center.
Yeah.
Dr. Leslie, and I did meet with her last week. Just to understand what information maybe what research we heard last year about the impacts on the green crab, on the
Right,
soft shell
right,
clams.
yeah.
And there's of course other data that they've looked at, research or hypotheses that they've looked into. And
Yeah.
there's a list of others that are waiting for someone to study. So I think there's something there. And so she wasn't at the previous meeting. Also curious about, the Shellfish Committee's conservation efforts and should there be some, I mean, to look at, what's impacting, understand what might be impacting the shellfish, the soft shell clams. But other committees in other towns do conservation measures, and they've been doing it as
Gotcha,
a
yeah.
long-standing practice, and it may be effective in some areas and not in others, or some years and not other years, but
Yeah.
right now there is no, and there used to be, I guess. I just happened to look for something completely different in the old minutes in 2015, and it was in that meeting that there was a recognition from the committee that they wanted to remove the requirement for conservation measures, and so
Oh.
they talked about it this year as a voluntary effort. And
Yeah.
it didn't grab a lot of
That's something. to
traction,
revisit.
but they did bring it up.
So that was 2015, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's where your numbers
You know-
start dropping off.
That was when they removed yeah.
it's possible in my mind to build on what we accomplished in opening up that channel and restricting the expansion of the lease into that channel. Because at least the DMR is aware of concerns about navigation.
Mhm.
And, it's so obvious that the concentration is within a mile of the town, okay? The river, I think the best oysters, quite frankly, come from way downriver, which are good in points, but anyway, that's personal. Point is, there's no reason why the licenses can't be further downriver, other than the convenience for the oyster guys getting into town dock. That's it. That's the only reason. It's not because the water is perfect right around that area. It's just because they want to get to town dock. That's it. The other places, for the most part, have their own docks, so they don't need to get to the town.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know Josh is involved in this and interested, and so, I don't know if he wants to go next Wednesday, but I'll try to go. But I mean, we're not trying to shut down the aquaculture industry. We're trying to say, look, can we work together and not, completely swallow up this one section of the river with more aquaculture.
Sure. Yeah, it was worth, and I wasn't suggesting that when I mentioned that. I was just, I wouldn't. I don't want to see a cart before the horse, like a moratorium come out and
No,
then you're trying to
No, I
figure out
think-
why
no.
you put the moratorium in
No,
place.
that
So it's a
would-
lot of
no,
information that we
That
need
wouldn't
to.
make any sense.
Yeah, so, but I think it's worthwhile getting more information. So the Shellfish Committee is going to meet. You've been in contact with Heather Leslie from Darling Center. And I don't know if there's a representative from the oyster groups in the area, but
Yeah.
we,
Yeah, I got
because-
two guys that are interested.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because you mentioned conservation measures, if there's something that they can take in, or, there's a lot of.
Well, I think
involved
the
groups, so.
Yeah, asking others what has worked as far as conservation measures goes, and I think the other question, when in conversation I've had is the question of, will it work?
Right.
You know, is that the reason it's declined? And, so
Okay.
what can we do and will it work if we do it? And so it's an important one.
I guess look at what Waldeboro does for seeding and
Mm-hmm.
South Bristol. If they have an active program, then that's
Right,
the
that's
reason.
something to look
And
at.
if we discontinued in 2015
Mhm.
and the numbers show the decline from 2015, then obviously, it might be better to go back to an active seeding program.
Right.
Yeah.
Last anecdotal thing I'll add is I talked to a guy that maintains most of the docks in that vicinity, all in Cottage Point
Mhm.
around my area. And also on Hog Island, he does all those docks. He says the oyster fellows, Carolina skiffs racing up and down the river damaged the docks and he has to go out and repair them and he's not too happy about that.
Yeah.
So it's just another effect of concentration.
Well, it sounds like we're at least in agreement that we need some more information anyway
Yeah,
to
yeah.
move forward. So, and it sounds like Andy's been
Yeah, this is
digging
good.
on the back end and
Yeah, that's
yeah.
good stuff.
All right. Anything else on?
Well, I think we at least got,
2008.
did anybody talk to DMR or is it just dug this out from last? week?
They were supposed to have a representative at the last, the annual Shellfish Committee meeting, but that someone, they ended up getting sick, so they couldn't come. So I think the expectation is that they will intend to send someone there.
Okay, so at least we'll get the issue on the table.
Okay.
We've also reached out to see if our representative from the sheriff's office as our shellfish warden can also attend, because they didn't make the annual meetings.
Oh, gotcha.
Hopefully
All
they
right.
can attend next week.
Yeah.
Be good to see the warden. Haven't met them, but I mean, to interact with the committee members, that was one of the things that did come up at the last meeting was I'd like to see maybe a little more presence perhaps, thinking that there's some
Right.
folks harvesting in areas maybe they shouldn't, or, just accountability for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep an eye on things. So fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, another thing on the agenda here with public vending ordinance.
I don't think I included it in your
You
packet.
can see a
so-
packet, but did you want to have a
Can-
conversation on that or?
I'll just give a quick intro and we can kind of table the longer discussion until I put it in the packet.
Fine, yeah.
We've had some questions on it. It's something that's been in existence for a while. The questions is George and I read it. It came up last year during Pumpkin Fest as well.
Yeah, that.
Unless you're a brick and mortar, or a nonprofit, you need to get a vending license and you're restricted to where you can do it. And the ordinance references the traffic and parking ordinance and says the business section as defined in that, which is listed from the bridge all the way to basically NC Hunt and all roads directly connecting to. So if we're applying that as it was written, you're really limited to roads like Lewis Point and Pleasant and ones that you wouldn't set up on anyways. So I think it's something that we do need to look at. There was one piece in there, I think that, maybe is all that it needs. It talks about public parking or what is it called? Instead of using parking spots, they use parking lots. And I'm wondering, it was meant to keep them off sidewalks, I think, and parking spaces along Main Street. So they don't create a traffic concern and maybe out of the municipal parking lot. I'm not certain on the history there, but I think the way it's worded, we do need to look into it again and
Yeah.
revise that ordinance, because we're having a hard time figuring out like how to answer
Did you get a
folks.
chance to see that or do you remember
I haven't looked at it.
looking at it? Yeah, because it was in 2015, I think, right? It was.
That was the
it was
last
put-
time it was updated.
Updated, yeah, and if I recall, part of the ordinance is the board is supposed to sign off on
A public hearing.
safety, a public hearing. And the board has no. We're not empowered to determine safety and there's nothing for us to go off of. So it's a really clunky ordinance. And I mean, I think we talked about it last year and yeah, I'd like to see something streamlined and we talked about a fee schedule for the license and stuff that can be changed and we can have a longer conversation about it, but.
And I think talking with George, I mean, in our minds, it makes more sense if we want to consider like a business licensing ordinance, which we have talked about, just maybe incorporate it in that
Right.
and not have it be a standalone, if the community would be open to that. Not knowing the full context and history of what created it. It was created, I think, in the late 80s, mid 80s. just before the food truck craze that exists in other places at the moment, but.
Yeah.
So I think that was, something that we're thinking is if we want to go forward with that business licensing as we can get to it. Just trying to fold it
That'll
into
be
that.
incorporated with it. Okay.
I can share that for the next meeting.
Yeah, if you get the card, the ordinance out, give us time to look into it and consider anyway, so. All right. Anything else on there? Do we have any discussion items? I can start with, let's start with Josh down this end. I'll mix it up a little bit.
Well, no.
Nothing. Andrea.
I still have so much concern about affordable housing for our workforce. I just ran into someone again today who is renting in downtown and she can only stay there for 9 months out of the year. Then they kick her out so that they can, rent those apartments for lots of money in the summer.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then she has to find someplace to live for 3 months. This is not, I don't know, I'm feeling.
Comp plan. Well, no, getting the housing on the comp plan is the place to start with it, yeah. Pass that down to you.
And the other thing is, I think we have to, I would like to know. Walking on Hodgson Street, this part,
Which part exactly?
the
There's
part
three parts,
between,
or-
the part between Pleasant and Elm. It's so bad.
On the road itself?
Yeah,
You wanna walk, well, the,
I guess
Look
we're
at
gonna
it.
have to do something.
yeah, I mean, for folks that are walking, I might,
Walking the sidewalk's
I can-
fine.
I
I
can
mean, the
walk on the
sidewalk's
sidewalk,
iffy,
but-
but it's okay. But really, the road itself, we probably you need to probably take a quick look at and see.
yeah, driving on, I guess I didn't realize it was.
It's
That-
kind of
that
bad.
beat.
It's kind of bad.
Okay, all right. All right. Lou?
The only thing I've got to say is I'm glad spring is coming.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough. yeah.
Amen.
I wish it warm up.
I know. Tom, anything to add tonight?
Yeah, I'm
Other-
covered enough talking tonight.
Yeah, I don't, I won't add anything to the conversation, so, yeah, make your job easy for you, nothing important to say, so.
Then I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Josh is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? So adjourned, so,
Yeah.
financials
What else we got to
and
sign?
minutes, right?
Yep.
And we've got liquor
Any
license,
chance you could stop by in the morning, take a look?
this one here. this-